Well, in campaign 2016 tonight, members of the GOP have reached out to the RNC, they say, about pulling resources from Donald Trump's campaign.
Yeah, they fear Trump could have a negative trickle-down effect that could cost the GOP House and Senate races. KCAL 9 political reporter Dave Bryan is here now with more on the latest defections within the GOP. Dave?
Yeah, and you know, Republicans we talked to seem to be really divided over this. Some of them say, hey, the numbers in the polls are really not all that bad considering what's going on. Others say, whoa, it's time to hit the exit. A few minutes ago, we talked to the Republican National Committee member from California who says some Republicans are overreacting to the Donald Trump campaign problems, but that's not the way some of his fellow Republicans are seeing it tonight. As the poll numbers move away from Donald Trump, some members of his own party are now in revolt, believing Trump is now a lost cause. More than 70 former GOP officials and staffers have now signed an open letter to the RNC chairman saying only the immediate shift of all available RNC resources to vulnerable Senate and House races will prevent the GOP from drowning with a Trump-emblazoned anchor around its neck. CNN reports its sources say RNC Chair Reince Priebus isn't ready to do that yet, but they also say if the Trump numbers continue to tumble, that day could come at some point. And Time magazine reports in its cover story on the Trump meltdown that Priebus has been trying to rein in Trump, but with only sketchy results. And even Trump is now pondering the possibilities.
I just keep doing the same thing I'm doing right now, and at the end, it's either going to work or I'm going to, I'm going to have a very, very nice, long vacation.
California Republican National Committee member Sean Steele says the troubles with the campaign are being greatly exaggerated by the media. But he acknowledges if he were managing the campaign, he would do things differently.
I'd take the phone away from Donald Trump and give it to Ivanka. Secondly, I'd have Ivanka with him at all moments of the day. And I would have her doing a lot of the television interviews herself. That's my world. Trump is showing that he's completely independent, barely a Republican, probably not much of a conservative, but, you know, the polls are showing this quite close.
Now, even as some members of his own party are recoiling in disgust at the way he's conducting his campaign, Donald Trump Thursday night doubled down on his charge that President Obama is the founder of ISIS.
Barack Obama is the founder. He is the founder in a true sense. But if he would have kept a relatively small force, he probably could have prevented ISIS from forming.
And when conservative talk show host Hugh Hewitt tried to put Trump's words in perspective, Trump disagreed.
I know what you meant. You meant that he created the vacuum, he lost the peace.
No, I meant he's the founder of ISIS. I do. He's the most valuable player. I give him the most valuable player award. I give her, too, by the way.
But he's not sympathetic to them. He hates them. He's trying to kill them.
He was the founder. The way he got out of Iraq was the founding of ISIS.
But in a 2007 interview with CNN's Wolf Blitzer, Trump blamed President George W. Bush and his Iraq war for the terrorist chaos that seized that part of the world, and declared U.S. forces should get out of Iraq right away.
How do they get out? You know how they get out? They get out. That's how they get out. Declare victory and leave.
The fact is, President George W. Bush negotiated the U.S. withdrawal date from Iraq set for 2011 with the leaders of the Iraqi government. President Obama then enforced the Bush withdrawal timeline. And in a related development, Patty Davis, the daughter of President Ronald Reagan, who survived an assassination attempt, wrote on Facebook that Trump's comments this week about Hillary Clinton and the Second Amendment could inspire violence, which, she wrote, makes this all even more horrifying. And one more note. Before the Trump rally began in Kissimmee, Florida Thursday night, a Trump supporter hung a Confederate flag with Trump 2016 on it across a railing in the arena. Campaign officials and law enforcement officers made him remove the flag before the rally started.
I am not a white supremacist, okay? And it was about the North and the South. It wasn't about racism at all.
Now tonight, Politico is reporting Donald Trump campaign officials and Republican Party leaders are expected to have a meeting tomorrow in Orlando, Florida, which one person called a come to Jesus meeting. Politico reports the meeting was requested by the campaign to heal the tense relationship and agree on how to turn things around. So Another meeting, another day, another meeting, huh?
Yeah, interesting. Now Trump is the anti-establishment candidate, and he has met with some of these establishment members. You know, Paul Ryan comes to mind. But can he make a compromise and turn this around and still compromise with the establishment? Can he do that?
You know, it's not as easy as it may look, you know, from the outside. I mean, in the last few days, Trump has softened his tone in return to what his people are telling him to do, and he appears to be more presidential. But you'll have to judge how successful that's been yourself. But the problem for Trump is he's trying to please two masters, and they're making conflicting demands. On the one hand, his hardcore supporters love the loud, irreverent, tough guy. But other voters who are not necessarily sold on him may be looking to see if he has presidential qualities. So far, he seems to have had a hard time balancing those two demands. So he goes loud and rogue sometimes and soft and presidential other times. And it's not just his tone and body language, but the content of what he's saying, which lately has been getting the negative headlines and pushing the mistakes Hillary Clinton is making into the background, Jeff.
Yeah.